Greetings, dear viewers and subscribers. You are watching the Ruslan Belov channel. Today, we will take a detailed look at the current situation in Ukraine as of January 12, 2026. Over the past 24 hours, a truly significant number of important and high-impact events have taken place, so without unnecessary introductions, I suggest we move straight to their analysis. At this moment, the Russian Federation has effectively concentrated its efforts primarily on strikes against energy infrastructure facilities. These attacks are being carried out on a large scale, involving hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles. In particular, information has emerged today indicating that following a massive drone strike on the territory of the Chernihiv region, in the area of the town of Novhorod-Siversky, serious disruptions to the power supply have occurred. Moreover, some sources claim that at present the entire Chernihiv region is completely without electricity, along with water supply, heating, and residential heat distribution. In addition, video footage from the area of the town of Korostan has appeared in the public domain today. These images are being circulated by Russian sources. The footage shows the operation of reconnaissance drones that detected an energy infrastructure facility, an electrical substation. Almost immediately after its detection, a large-scale strike was carried out against this target using dozens of attack drones. As a result of this strike, the substation was completely disabled and effectively destroyed. Thus, we can state that the Russian side continues to deliberately pursue the objective of depriving Ukraine of stable and reliable electricity supply. At the same time, this process cannot be described as either an initial or a final stage. Over the past 4 years of the conflict, the Russian Federation has managed to damage or completely disable a significant number of Ukraine's energy and critical infrastructure facilities. The Russian side is also continuing to pay special and increased attention to the Odessa region. A large volume of video materials and reports has recently been coming from this direction. Today, in particular, an extremely important video was published by a unit known as Rubicon. The footage demonstrates the operation of Russian unmanned aerial vehicles conducting deep penetration flights into Ukrainian territory, reaching distances of up to 150 kilometers. The videos show a series of strikes both on the city of Zaporizhzhia itself and on targets within the Dnipropetrovsk region. In addition, the same footage captures strikes on the Odessa region, including the city of Chornomorsk and several other populated areas. If we calculate the distance involved, it becomes clear that these Russian drones, crossing the waters of the Black Sea, were most likely launched from the territory of the Crimean Peninsula. In this case, they travel a distance of more than 100 kilometers before striking fuel storage facilities, reservoirs, and energy infrastructure objects across entire regions. Information has also emerged today indicating that during the night, the Russian side carried out large-scale strikes on energy infrastructure facilities in the Odessa region. As a result of these attacks, the region's energy infrastructure sustained damage. A number of sources report that over the past 24 hours, the Odessa region experienced disruptions not only in electricity supply, but also in water supply. The published video footage also documents another direction in which drones are being used. This concerns strikes on maritime vessels. The video shows drones attacking ships that were either anchored or operating within the waters of the Black Sea. It is presumed that these vessels may have belonged to companies involved in supplying or exporting Ukrainian agricultural products. At the same time, the Ukrainian side is also expanding the geography of its strikes. Today, Ukraine's main intelligence directorate published a highly illustrative and important video filmed in the Caspian Sea region. The footage shows drone strikes against drilling installations and platforms located in the waters of the Caspian Sea. Based on the available video materials, it is quite difficult to accurately assess the scale of the damage and the extent of destruction inflicted on these facilities. However, at this stage, this is not the key issue. What is far more important is the fact that Ukrainian drones are capable of reaching this region. At present, it remains unclear exactly how Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles managed to cover such a considerable distance and reach the Caspian Sea. Several versions exist. One possibility is that the drones were launched from the eastern part of the Black Sea and then traveled a distance of approximately 700 kilometers, although this option appears extremely challenging from a technical standpoint. It is also possible that the drones were launched from the territory of one of the states bordering the Russian Federation. In any case, it is evident that both the geographical scope of the conflict and the range of strikes continue to expand. At the same time, we clearly see that neither the Ukrainian nor the Russian side is currently demonstrating readiness to initiate a negotiation process. Hostilities are ongoing. Ukraine continues to insist on implementing its own plan, while the Russian Federation emphasizes the need to eliminate the root causes of the conflict. Thus, as we can observe, there is currently no consensus between the parties. Moreover, Ukraine's former foreign minister stated today that the likelihood of the conflict ending before the end of 2026 appears low. Additionally, during the night, the Russian side carried out strikes against targets within the city of Kyiv. Video footage showing the aftermath of these attacks was published in the morning. The images show emergency and rescue services engaged in mitigating the consequences of the strikes. According to official data, a total of 156 unmanned aerial vehicles of various types were launched against Ukrainian territory by the Russian Federation overnight. The Ukrainian side claims that 135 of them were either shot down by air defense systems or suppressed by electronic warfare assets. However, perhaps the most important and revealing development, which definitively clarifies the prospects for any potential negotiations, is the information that today a bill was submitted to the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine to extend martial law and general mobilization for an additional 90 days. Actions in this direction are being taken in a very decisive manner. I would like to remind you that during the previous extension, the Ukrainian authorities delayed the process of prolonging martial law and mobilization until the very last moment. At that time, the relevant document was submitted to the Verkhovna Rada almost at the very end of the month. Frankly speaking, there were expectations that this time as well, the Ukrainian side would attempt to delay this decision, possibly trying to use the issue of extending martial law as part of potential negotiation maneuvers. However, in practice, we are seeing a completely different picture. Today, January 12, 2026, is effectively the first full working day after the New Year holidays, and already on this very day, the bill was submitted to the Verkhovna Rada. This allows us to conclude that within the next few days, and certainly by the end of this week, the law will be adopted, signed, and enter into force. Accordingly, the regime of martial law and mobilization will be extended at least until May 2026. This, in turn, indicates that the conflict will, with a high degree of probability, continue at least until that time. Now let us move directly to the line of contact. We will begin with the Zaporizhzhia sector of the front, where the operational situation is increasingly developing, not in favor of the units of the armed forces of Ukraine. It is from this direction that the most significant and large-scale updates are coming today. As recently as January 11, 2026, the frontline configuration in this area looked different. However, today, based on reports and information provided by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, as well as by a number of pro-Ukrainian sources and neutral cartographic services, the necessary adjustments have been made. As you can see, according to the latest data, Russian units have managed to significantly improve their tactical and operational positions in the area of the settlement of Primorsk. This information is confirmed both by neutral mapping services and by sources adhering to a pro-Russian position. To be honest, today I expected that the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation might also officially confirm the advance of Russian units in this sector of the front. However, no such statement has been published by the Russian military department so far. At the same time, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reports that Russian units have managed to significantly improve their tactical positions in the area of the settlement of Novoboykivsk. Based on these official reports, we are making the corresponding changes and clarifications on the battlefield map. In addition, pro-Ukrainian sources, including Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, have published another video. In this footage, we can observe an attempted counterattack by Ukrainian units against Russian positions. These actions took place slightly north and northeast of the settlement of Stepnohursk. Ukrainian units launched a counterstrike precisely in this area. Taking into account the totality of incoming reports, video materials, and statements from both sides, we make the final adjustment to the line of contact in this sector. Moreover, at present, the Ukrainian side is making active efforts to stabilize the frontline situation. or perhaps not merely stabilize it, but significantly strengthen defensive positions south of the settlement of Kamyshuvaka. We have already discussed this strong point in detail before. It is an extremely powerful and well-prepared fortified area, surrounded on all sides by anti-tank trenches. Ukrainian forces are regularly transferring additional units and reserves to this area in order to hold this critical defensive line. However, the key issue here is logistics. All supply routes for this sector pass through the Konka River, and the number of locations where Ukrainian forces can safely cross this river is extremely limited. To be frank, judging by the current situation, it appears that there may no longer be any safe crossing points at all. This is also confirmed by video footage from recent days. Repeated attempts by Ukrainian units to cross the Konka River in the Kamyshuvaka area have been recorded, and each time these units come under intense and precise fire from Russian FPV drone operators. Important information has also emerged today directly from the Zaporizhzhia agglomeration. This concerns not so much the city of Zaporizhzhia itself, but rather the surrounding settlements. According to incoming reports, the Ukrainian side has begun evacuating the population from the settlement of Kushuhum. The National Police of Ukraine published a corresponding video confirming this. The footage shows the evacuation process itself, including the removal of civilians from the settlement. It is important to understand that Kushuhum is located just a few kilometers from potential Russian positions in the area of the settlement of Primorske. A distance of approximately 5 kilometers is extremely short. The only natural barrier separating Russian units from this settlement is the Konka River. Nevertheless, despite this, evacuation has already begun. It is also important to emphasize that this is not merely another rural settlement within Zaporizhzhia Oblast. In fact, the evacuation of part of the Zaporizhzhia agglomeration has effectively begun. There is no clear administrative or visual boundary between the city of Zaporizhzhia and the settlement of Kushuhum. This is a single, continuous urbanized area consisting of numerous residential districts, towns and villages that gradually transition into one another. Zaporizhzhia seamlessly transitions into Balabin, and Balabin in turn, without any defined boundary, flows directly into Kushuhum. Thus, we can say that the evacuation process is already affecting the outer areas of the Zaporizhzhia agglomeration, specifically those parts located closest to the line of contact. On the Russian side, responsibility for this section of the front lies with the Dnieper troop grouping. We can clearly see that the pace of offensive operations in this direction continues to increase. Most likely, as we have discussed in previous videos, the main and most intense fighting in the near future, probably within the next month or even slightly less, will unfold over small settlements and the remnants of villages. These include such locations as Mahdalinivka, Zaplavne, Novoyakivlivka, and Pavlivka. After securing positions in these areas, the Russian army is highly likely to continue advancing eastward, toward Buryakivka, Novoandriivka, and Novopavlivka, that is, in the direction of the Orikhiv agglomeration. At the same time, it is unlikely that Russian units will attempt to advance northward toward Kamyshuvaka. At the current stage, such an offensive appears practically impossible. The distances involved across open terrain are too large, and in addition, south of the settlements of Zarekne and Kamyshuvaka, there is an extremely strong and well-fortified Ukrainian armed forces strongpoint with an extensive system of anti-tank trenches. It is evident that extremely difficult and bloody battles await in this area in the future. If we turn to the eastern Zaporizhzhia direction, no significant changes have been recorded there today. Some cartographers and military analysts are publishing their own assessments of developments in this sector. Overall, if we summarize the situation, combat operations continue within the conditional quadrilateral of Huliaipol, Staropetrivka, Staroukrainka, and Zaliznikne. However, no substantial changes on the ground or adjustments to the front line have been recorded. Next, we move on to the Dobropilia sector of the front. From this direction, only a single geolocated video has been published, linked to the area of the Pokrovsky mine. In the footage, we can see Russian sabotage groups moving north of this area. These groups came under fire, and based on this video material, a minor adjustment was made on the map. Overall, this represents only a clarification of the line of contact, without any serious changes to the operational situation. Among the more notable developments in this sector is an adjustment published by a pro-Ukrainian cartographic resource. According to this update, Russian units have moved beyond the northern boundary of the settlement of Pokrovsk. Additionally, Russian forces continue to gradually narrow or completely eliminate the so-called grey zone that is still marked by pro-Ukrainian cartographers in the northern part of Pokrovsk, as well as in the northern part of Mirnohrad. As for the Kostiantynivka sector of the front, a minor adjustment has been recorded there as well. I would remind you that over the past several days, we have repeatedly discussed the possibility of the start of a broader offensive toward the city. Today, a short video was published from the central part of the city, near the railway station. The footage shows FPV drone strikes against Russian positions. Based on this material, a small adjustment has been made on the map in this area. On the Lyman direction, no major changes have been recorded. However, it is worth paying attention to some highly notable adjustments that pro-Ukrainian cartographic services have begun to publish. Judging by these updates, the situation on the Lyman axis is indeed quite difficult. For the first time since the start of hostilities in this sector, pro-Ukrainian sources have recorded changes indicating that Russian units have improved their positions between the settlements of Stavki and Lyman. In addition, Russian forces have advanced in the northwestern and northern parts of the settlement of Drobyshev. Such adjustments indicate that extremely intense and heavy fighting is currently underway in this area. At the same time, overall, the map on the Lyman direction has not undergone any major changes today. Several materials have been published showing FPV drone strikes against positions of the armed forces of Ukraine, as well as against their logistics, but without any significant territorial changes. The next important map adjustments come from the Sumy sector of the front. According to data from the same pro-Ukrainian cartographic services, Russian units have managed to improve their positions in the area of the settlement of Sadki. Overall, based on the latest changes, it appears that the Russian army is aiming to take full control of the forested area around Sadki, that is, to establish control over this entire territory. Most likely, in this way, Russian forces are attempting to straighten the front line ahead of a larger-scale offensive toward the major Sumy forest massif, which stretches from the state border all the way to the city of Sumy itself. That concludes today's briefing, dear friends. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for watching the channel. Be sure to subscribe and support the video with a like. All the best to you, and see you again soon.